Greetings, Taku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Vikings episode review right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. And always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's Vikings episode review. And this is my review of Season 1, Episode 4, entitled Trial. Now, general thoughts on this week's episode. First and foremost, hands down, best episode so far. Without a doubt, best episode that they've released so far. And that's just because of what all we were given in this week's episode in terms of action, in terms of plot, in terms of character development. There were so many things at play and so much in motion in this week's episode. And I'll address those one by one throughout this review. So yeah, definitely I'm impressed with how much they were able to fit in. I was also impressed with how much they set up, because I think with all of the events that happened in the second half of the episode, viewers might forget what they've managed to set up in the first half of the episode, and that's what's going on with King, what is it, King Al? I think that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, but like everything they're setting up to take place in England, you know, they've done a great job in doing that for the first half. And I also like that change of focus, because we started the episode out with the second raid in England, and then of course, like I said, they're setting everything up for, you know, Ragnar's inevitable return, or rather to just the response to Ragnar's raids. But then we got like that whole second half was just so driven with what was going on back home with Earl Haraldson and the trial and everything, that just that shift and that immediacy of events I thought was done really, really well. So first off, my thoughts on the raid. Thought it was smart, actually. I thought it was well written. I thought Ragnar really did flex his mental muscles and that spark of genius that he has, you know, waiting until Sunday to attack, because he knew that everyone would be in church. So so that was really smart on his part. And then the thing with what's his name, Nook, whatever his name. The second they introduced that character in the second episode, I knew it was like, okay, it's just a matter of time before he goes. Because remember, Ragnar, he was one of the characters that Ragnar pointed out in that meeting in the second episode. So I knew it was for a reason, and I knew they spotlighted that character for a reason. And I just had the sense, especially when we found out that he was going on the second raid. And of course, you know, remember Earl Haraldson said, you know, I'm going to, you know, make sure you keep an eye out on him, because if anything happens to him, it's going to reflect poorly on you. I knew it's like, yeah, he ain't coming back. I just didn't know how they were going to do it. I thought they were going to do it on the boat, on the way, either on the way there or on the way back. I didn't know that. And then it was Lagatha who did it, and I especially didn't expect that. And part of me does think that it was a little contrived, like it was a tad bit cliche that, of course, you know, since there's a woman on the raid with him, of course her big conflict is going to be the whole thing of rape, which that's not to downplay that as a major issue for women. But what I'm saying is, I was hoping that it would have been something more of, she might have got injured in battle, or she might have been separated from the rest of the party and would have had to like fight her way back. I was expecting it to be something that would not make her stand out as being the woman amongst them. Do you follow what I'm saying? I figured whatever problem she was going to have could have just as easily been had by anybody else. And they didn't do that. So I'm not saying that what they did was bad. It was still good, and especially because it's set up for the trial. So it all worked out very well. I'm just saying, I kind of suspected that something like that would have happened. But like I said, I'm loving what they're doing, with the king developing, his response to the raids, because I'm pretty sure by the time Ragnar goes back, there's going to be like a fully mobilized army waiting for him. And of course, he's going to have to go back with more ships. I mean, that's just obvious. So I like what they all did with that. Also want to note, I like what they keep doing with Floki, and I don't want to call it an obsession, but it is somewhat of an intrigue that he has with the religious relics, with the Christian relics. Because you'll notice in both raids, Loki's the one walking out carrying the cross over his shoulder. I said Floki, excuse me. But he acts like Loki anyway. But so I do like that that aspect of his character they are reinforcing, and they're keeping that going. I also like the fact that we're seeing Floki much more like a warrior. I mean, in last week's episode and in this week's episode, in two separate fights, Floki kicks ass. He does, and I like also, I just like what they keep doing with that character, because he is amongst the most interesting characters in the show. He's a craftsman, he's a fanatic, and he's also a warrior. So all of that I find just to be very interesting, the way they blend all that together just in one character. One character with very little dialogue. I don't know if you all have kept up with that also, but Floki has probably the least amount of dialogue amongst the main cast. So I also found that to be very interesting. Now I want to talk about Ethelstan, because I don't think I really talked about him enough in last week's episode, but I feel like what he was dealing with in this episode had to be discussed, and that's the question of faith. He's starting to question his faith, and of course that was just something that was bound to happen given the situation, and given everything that we know about his character. But I do like how it's not just one huge what's the term I'm looking for? Not debacle, melodrama. That's it. I like how with Ethelstan, it's not one huge melodrama. Yes, I think we got more of the sorrow and more of the depression in last week's episode, but I like how it wasn't just like he's just, oh my God, woe is me, I don't know what to do, where do I go, what do I look up to, everything I believe is wrong. I like that they are not establishing that character in that light. I like how it's little by little by little, and to be honest, I think we got the most severe of it last week, and now it's not so much that he is questioning his livelihood anymore. It's more about his faith. He is starting to question what he believes, not just now, but what he's always believed in, and how despite his devotion over the years, his faith is not being rewarded. So now we are dealing with a more inquisitive Ethelstan now. And I think that's just going to progress more and more as he grows accustomed to living with Ragnar. But I think also the more he's around Ragnar, And the more he's around his family, and the more he's getting this different outlook on life from an unlikely source, we're going to start getting more and more of that, which I find very interesting. Let's talk about Earl Haraldson. I am a tad bit surprised that they are portraying him in a villain-esque light. And this is what I mean. Of course we know he's the antagonist. We know because Ragnar's the protagonist, so of course whoever is the one preventing Ragnar from doing what he wants to accomplish, that by ergo proxy he is the antagonist. We know that that's Earl Haraldson. But what I'm saying is, you can write an antagonist without having them be a villain. And they're starting to portray Haraldson as more of a villain because he is doing much more devious things. Now, we learned in the pilot, we learned in the first episode that he is not necessarily fair. Okay, but we are starting to see more selfishness from him. We are starting to see more vindictiveness and jealousy from him. And I'm surprised by that because I thought that it was going to be more of the old man afraid of the younger contender, the paranoid, stubborn, sort of fixed within his own belief system and afraid of change. You know, the old being afraid of the new. I thought that was going to be the driving force behind Haraldson and Ragnar's rivalry. And it's still there, but now it's getting a bit too personal. You know, it's almost as if Haraldson is now out to rid himself of Ragnar entirely. And if it wasn't for the way they're writing him, I would still believe in, you know, that it's the whole old versus new type thing, you know, the old way versus change type thing. But here's the thing, the way in which Haraldson behaves, I can't help but think that he would do the same thing he's doing to Ragnar if it was just anybody else, regardless of what it is that they represent or what it is that they're offering or how they're opposing themselves as a potential threat to him. I think regardless of who it would have been, if he didn't want them around, he'd be doing the same thing. So that's why I'm saying he's more of a villain now. Especially after sending that hit team out after Ragnar and his company. At that point, I was like, yeah, now they really are trying to turn him into the bad guy. So, like I said, I'm just surprised by it. I'm also surprised by Rollo. I am. And I'm very impressed with what they did with him. Because just in Rollo's actions with the trial, see now who I think Rollo is completely blown now. Because, you know, he stood by his brother, got Ragnar off. Great, right? But then you find out that he didn't do it for Ragnar, he did it for Lagertha. So now I can't see. I used to think that maybe Rollo was just, you know, a horny bastard, and he wanted to get into Lagertha's pants. But risk, you know, turning your back on the Earl to help your brother, but you did so in order to save his wife. I mean, see, now I'm thinking Rollo actually cares for her now. Because here's the thing. Think about it like this. If Lagertha never came out and, you know, told the truth about what really happened, then Rollo would have been defending his brother in order to, you know, to free him so that he can return back home, right? So in a way, it's almost as if Rollo helped out his brother just so that Lagertha wouldn't be without her husband. You see what I'm saying? Because okay, like when she came clean about what happened, yeah, that was so that she wouldn't, that she wouldn't be killed or anything like that. But even if she hadn't done that and Rollo would have still stuck up for Ragnar, then that's what it would have been. He would have been freeing his brother, not for his brother's sake, but for Lagatha's sake, for her happiness and her well-being. So, see, that's what I'm saying, man. Now I got to think differently about Rollo, man. I really... Oh, also, remember the scene with the old man during the second raid? I mean, oh, man. See, history got me. They got me. They pulled a red herring. I think they did, because of what we saw in the previews and from what we saw with his previous arguments with Ragnar. You thought that Rollo was going to be, the whole stereotypical, treacherous brother, jealous brother figure. And you guys will remember, I commented like, I don't want to see Rollo like that. Now, I don't think that's the case with him anymore. And I think that's my favorite part of this episode, is what they did with Rollo and what they did with Ethelstan. I think those are my two favorite parts of this episode. Yeah, that's just really good stuff. And then, of course, what the episodes end, what we are now anticipating for next week. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I'm really looking forward to next week's episode. So, not to make this review any longer, that's going to do it for me for this week's Vikings episode review. And in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this week's episode, as well as some of your thoughts for the remainder of the season. Also, though, to help generate the dialogue in the comments, this is what I want you all to do this week. Let me know who your favorite character is and why. Let me know who your favorite character is so far, and why you like him so much. Now, of course, mine is Ragnar, and that's for all the reasons that I mentioned in my first 3 reviews. And yeah, and I'm liking him more and more episode after episode after episode. He's a great character. But yeah, so guys, please feel free to do so in the comments below. Brief little update though before I wrap this thing up, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you are wondering what's going to happen next Sunday once Game of Thrones starts back up. And this is what I'm going to do. Now, I'm not sure if History Channel is still doing the next episode of Vikings a week in advance, because I didn't see a commercial for it this week. But I tell you this, if they are still doing that, like if they're doing that for next week, what's going to happen is I'll go ahead, because I got 2 ways to do it. I can either go on history.com, or I can go on, because I have DirecTV, and I know they do it on DirecTV too. So I have 2 venues in which to do so. So, now, so what's going to happen is, if in fact next week's episode is up tomorrow, I'm just going to go ahead and watch it ahead of time, and I'll upload my review for next week's episode on Saturday, the day before it premieres. And if they don't, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and do my review for Vikings on Monday, so it will be a day after. And like I said, that's no reflection on the show or anything, but that's just because since Game of Thrones is coming back, that I've been following and reviewing that series from the beginning. That's kind of like one of my flagship reviews on the channel, so it kind of has seniority. And doing 2 reviews in one night, especially that late, because you're talking about Game of Thrones at 8 o'clock, and then I would have to do my review for it and upload it right thereafter, then watch Vikings and then do another review and upload it right thereafter. That's going to take way too long. That's going to take way too long. So that's what's going to happen with Vikings from here on out. It's either so after this review, look out for it either on Saturday or on Monday. But like I said, I'll see what's going on with that and let you guys know before it's uploaded. I'll let you guys know ahead of time. And with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, reminding you guys that Totems issue #1 is still on sale. Links are in the description box below. And until next time, peace.